So let's talk about what's in store for 2024. Much like the Everything I Knit in 2023 videos, a lot of people are making 2024 knitting plans, knitting goals, knitting intentions. And that is one thing that I did do for 2023. However, I learned a couple things from doing that. One, it doesn't really make sense for me to make detailed project plans for an entire year ahead. And knowing my tendency to change my mind, I can be really indecisive sometimes, especially when it comes to whatever my next cast on is going to be. I listed a lot of specific projects with specific yarns that were in my stash at the time. And all of those projects, looking back, I still like them, but a lot of them I never got around to in 2023. Maybe I decided to do something else with the yarn. Maybe I decided, I bit off more than I could chew. And that was the real problem, is for some reason I thought I was gonna be just out here making at least 8 sweaters, and that is absolutely not the case. The truth is, whatever I say I wanna make right now may not be what I want to make 3 months from now. I may totally change my mind, and that's fine. But it feels kind of weird to sort of publicly declare these are all the things I'm going to do and then proceed to not do them. Not that I owe the audience any type of follow through on my plans, but it kind of made me feel weird. So I don't want to make this grand announcement that I'm going to make all of these things in 2024, 17 sweaters and 36 pairs of socks. That is absolutely not what's going to happen. So I'm not going to share specific plans in the way that I did last year. But I think it might be more appropriate for me to instead share with you some of my knitting and making intentions for 2024. And the first one, of course, is relating to buying yarn. And that is buying yarn with a purpose, being more intentional with my yarn purchases. So spoiler alert, the 2023 no buy is not extending into 2024, at least not to the degree that it existed last year. I am going to have some guidelines that I would like to honor, but if I want to buy yarn and I feel like buying yarn, I'm going to buy yarn, but the expectation is that I'm going to be more intentional about it. So I would like to minimize or completely eliminate any spontaneous yarn purchases, especially sweater quantities. Yeah, no more of that. For me, I think my biggest chance of success is if I fall in love with a pattern first and then fall in love with the yarn for that pattern. That's the goal. That's always the goal. So when I go yarn shopping, decide that, okay, I am about to be ready to start a new project. I have sort of a list of options of projects that I would love to start next, potentially. And with having those projects identified, as well as the yardage I would need and the yarn weight and all the specs, I can approach a day of yarn shopping with those sort of guidelines in mind so that I can purchase yarn that will suit the project that I want to make and will also be enough yardage for what I want to make. The second intention for 2024 is confronting my old finished objects. So there are a number of pieces in my hand knit collection that I don't wear for one reason or another. And I think it would be worth dedicating some time this coming year to addressing those in whatever way makes the most sense. But with my sweaters in particular, I have a few. I made them and I don't love them as much as I should, and thus I don't wear them. So where do I go from there? Do I donate it? Do I frog it and knit something else? Do I gift it to someone in my life? And those are the decisions that I would like to make in 2024 with some of my older finished objects that I don't really love as much as I should. And perhaps I'll make a video about it. And this intention isn't so much that I sort of follow through on frogging everything that I want to frog and reknitting it into new projects. But I definitely want 2024 to be the year that I address them, share them, and decide what I'm going to do with them. And for me, I think that's half the battle, if I'm totally honest. So I am excited to see what comes of that. The next intention is knitting more gifts. I can count on one hand the number of gifts that I knit in 2023. And in 2022 and 2021, I knit a lot more gifts because I was super excited about this new skill that I had and I wanted to spread the love. And I wasn't necessarily factoring in who's knit worthy or not. I just knew I wanted to knit gifts for people. I think in 2023, I was a little more discerning on who I knit gifts for. And in the interest of the no-buy and knowing that most of the yarn in my stash, I didn't purchase it with the intention or plan of knitting it for gifts for other people. So that kind of by default eliminated a lot of gift knitting opportunities that I might have otherwise had. And I enjoyed mostly knitting for myself, but this past gift, the current gift that I'm knitting for my husband has reinvigorated within me this desire to knit more gifts for other people. In particular, my husband. I would love to knit him a sweater. I don't know if 2024 will be the year, but he's definitely getting a few pairs of socks for me and at least another hat. And that alone would equate to more gifts than I have made in 2023. So I would like to make more gifts, but because I want to, not because people ask me to. For my loved ones out there, if you ask me to knit you something, it's gonna make me not want to knit you anything. I don't know, maybe it's some weird reverse psychology happening. I don't know, but that's just putting that out there, okay? Just don't ask me for anything and you might get something. The fourth and final intention for 2024 is to prioritize using stash. And I think if you follow me for the past year or so, that should come as no shock whatsoever. It is very much something at the top of my priority list for 2024. And not only because 2023 went so well and I thoroughly enjoyed knitting for my stash and having that experience, but also because I still have a sizable stash. And although it doesn't overwhelm me as much as it used to a year ago, it is still a collection of yarn that I would very much like to transform into finished objects. So that is very much still a priority of mine for 2024. And that is the perfect segue to briefly talk about the future of the no-buy. So as I mentioned a couple times in this video so far, the no-buy of 2023 is not extending into 2024. However, here are some guidelines that I would like to honor as I'm buying yarn in 2024. For one, I would like to only buy yarn in person. I know at least a couple of fiber festivals that I would like to go to this year, if at all possible. I want to explore my local yarn stores more often. I've been to several, but only a couple of times for each of them, except for Miss Pearl, which is 5 minutes away from me. But I would like to explore more local yarn stores in the city, get more familiar with the types of yarns that they stock, and think up some future projects that maybe I want to purchase yarn for from those establishments. I really like the vibe of local yarn stores. It is an experience being able to walk in and know that most of the people in there are going to be your kind of people. They're going to be into the things that you're into. And it's not very often that you walk into a space like that in person, especially when it relates to a hobby like knitting that is very much a solitary experience. I've thoroughly appreciated having this online community and presence, but it's something to be said for going in person and having that same experience. And I get that from fiber festivals, but I also get that from visiting local yarn stores, which is something that I would really like to do more often in 2024. Even if I don't end up buying yarn and every trip to a local yarn store. To me, going to the yarn store is an enjoyable thing on its own. The second guideline is that I only want to buy yarn for projects that I will cast on within the next month. And that's more specific to sweater quantities and garment quantities. I just don't want it to sit in my stash. I want to sort of decide I want to make a project, go get the yarn and start the project in fairly quick succession. The third guideline, as I have it written here, says absolutely no sock yarn. But my first yarn purchase of 2024 has been 2 skeins of sock yarn. So I already broke that rule, but I will edit it to say minimize the purchase of sock yarn. I will talk about this in a future video this year, but I have a decent collection, more than enough to entertain me for the next year or so. I don't personally feel the need to purchase any more sock yarn until I work through what I have. The sock yarns, I think at this point, is kind of where I was at with my sweater quantities going into 2023. So I would love to commit to just working through as much of it as I can. The 1 sock a month challenge is fully on the table for 2024. And yeah, I don't want to buy any sock yarn. So I think that covers just about everything I wanted to say in this video. I'm looking forward to 2024 and what it has in store for my knitting and potentially crocheting. I don't have any crochet projects on my radar at the moment, but the past few years have told me that I need at least 1 crochet project a year. That seems to be my natural cadence with crochet. As far as this YouTube channel, I don't have any intentional plans thus far. I guess I do have some plans. So in 2023, I more or less did a video every month talking about everything that I made in the previous month and, you know, what was on my needles at the time of recording that video. So all the finished objects and whips. My dog is staring at me. Hey, buddy. So yes, in 2023, I did about a video a month. I think at the start of 2023, I sort of expressed a desire to try to do mid-month videos between the monthly What I Knit videos that maybe are more topical or vlog style. I, for the most part, didn't follow through on that. There was a handful of videos I did outside of the Everything I Knit This Month videos. So I don't want to make any grand commitments in that regard. But what I will say is that I don't think the monthly videos are going to be a thing in 2024, at least not the standard format of here's everything I finished, here's what I'm working on now, here's the yarn I purchased, etc., etc. I think I'm a little bored with that format. What I would like to do instead is share some quarterly knitting plans and quarterly making reviews. So like at the end of Q1, I'll say, here's what I finished in Q1, here are my plans for Q2, that kind of a thing. More or less the same format, if I'm totally honest. But I think the quarterly cadence as opposed to monthly will give me more of a bandwidth to do other types of videos in between the quarterly videos. So in 2023, I had the best intentions of coming on and doing the monthly videos, and then in between the monthly videos doing the other types of videos, whatever tickled my fancy at the time. But that sort of shook out to be every 2 weeks, which I think is a pretty aggressive pace. I don't know that I can keep up with an every 2 week type of schedule, because it's really just a mental hurdle for me. I hate editing videos, and the act of sitting down and recording them is also pretty exhausting. I don't hate it as much as the editing, but overall the process I think is just a means to an end, because what I do love is publishing the videos and interacting with people in comments, but the behind the scenes stuff is not necessarily my favorite. Similar to with my knitting, I am more of a product knitter, and I am more of a product video creator. So make of that what you will. But I say all that to say that the monthly videos were manageable for the most part in 2023. So I would like to say that the monthly videos will be continuing, but only quarterly will I talk about my projects and where they are in real time and what I plan to knit next. At least as of the time I'm sitting down and recording this video, that is my intention for my 2024 content. That could change. I could fall off the face of the earth in terms of my internet presence. That could happen. So I don't want you to hold me to any commitments, but I did want to share kind of what's on my mind in terms of the direction I want my content to go in 2024. And I also wanted to take a chance to wish you guys a happy new year and happy holidays, whatever holidays you happen to celebrate. And thank you for being here. I don't say that often. It just slips my mind, which sounds really bad, but I recently noticed that I passed 3,000 subscribers. I'm pretty well past it, so it must have happened a while ago, but my subscriber count is not something I necessarily check on pretty often. But there are 3,000 of you, which I think is awesome. So thank you for being here. And I hope that the content I make in 2024 makes you decide to stick around. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.